It's been my real pleasure to lead this chamber for 5 years, and the original thing that we agreed is that the same old wouldn't be good enough for Auckland. We were going to move with real pace and momentum, and we wouldn't continue to relitigate the challenges and the decisions that we've made. Once we made a decision, we'd move. We're in danger of turning our back on what I think is one of the most brilliant principles that Auckland could ever have hoped to expect from this chamber, that we would move seamlessly and keep moving forward and not second guess ourselves all the time around our critical decisions. It was the reason why we were brought together, because we argued with each other all the time and we were so divergent. This chamber presents us with an opportunity to be consistent and reliable in our decision making. And when we have to make tough decisions, to back them and not second guess ourselves. And so today is an opportunity to back ourselves, to listen to our advisors, to keep moving forward, but also to continue on the debate and the discussion, which I'm sure we can. So, councillors, the floor is open, and I want to offer Councillor Cam first opportunity to speak, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I suppose, from my point of view, what you're recommending there is something that most Aucklanders would expect to read in our Auckland as we near any annual plan round, and so I don't see any concessions there at all. In fact, if I was one of those 6 councillors that wrote to you 6 weeks ago, and this is the outcome, then they've made no headway as far as I see. So my amendment that I submitted on Tuesday, I invite you to put up, Mr. Chair, because that was based on a figure that was publicly consulted on, page 45 of the consultation documents. And it talked about a targeted rate collecting 30 million, and it talked about the fixed, 2 options, one being evaluation based and one being a fixed charge. The first is to charge every property an additional fixed charge of $58.99. That's what we consulted on. And so you're saying, well, why should we pick a figure? Well, that's because that is a number that is in our draft consultation. $100 or $114 was not there, and so I'm going back to that. Given that you, with your transport targeted rate, Mr. Mayor, have chosen to go with that flat amount, I'm going back to the one that we consulted on. And I've put it in my amendment, but obviously the communications are working, so that's good, that we instruct the CE that as part of the 16-17 annual plan budget preparations, as is we've all discussed in workshops and as the Auditor General said is our prerogative at annual plan time, that he presents options that commit to the transport targeted levy at $58.99 as referred to in the original LTP public consultation, and that the remainder be found within existing budgets, noting it would equate to less than 1% of the organisation's OPEX and include rail costs, and note that which you haven't, Mr. Mayor, and I'd invite you to do this if this doesn't go through, note that the UAGC will be reviewed annually as something else as a group we've discussed, that it shouldn't be a triennial decision, but it should be something that is reviewed annually, and you've given your commitment to that too. So for me, that means the Chief Executive comes back to us and actually says, look, if you want to find the shortfall of 30 million, if you're going to raise 30 million yourself and find around 30 million and find it within the organisation, then you have to sell this piece of land. You have to recycle this particular asset. You have to cut this particular program or project and give us some options to then look at. Again, all we're asking in this amendment is for the Chief Executive to specifically go away and find some options, deliver us some options that could net us that money. And you're saying, oh, 30 million. Well, when you consider that ACPL have got the target of raising 650 million over the next 10 years, then perhaps they need to, it's an opportunity for them to look harder at our existing municipal land holdings and property holdings. So 58.99, it puts that on the table as we consulted on, and it directs the CE without giving any specifications as to cutting into our social budget or looking at particular assets. It puts to him, for the first time, I would suggest in 5 years, a directive from this council to come up and find us, on top of the organisational savings, find us $30 million. Let's stop putting our hand out to the ongoing regional suburban ratepayer, because as we know, this flat fee, as you acknowledge, Mr Mayor, is not causing riots in the street in Remuera, but it is going to have a huge impact in the streets of Mangere and Otahu, where their residential rates increase is 16.9%. Now that's another $50 a month, and if on their rents or on their rates, and that's $50 a month less on food, clothing, and for the kids. And so, if we're looking at the real victims in this flat fee, it's not my people in Remuera, Mr Mayor. It's actually those in the likes of Otahu Mangere, which are going to be stung badly by this. Let's get it back to the $58.99, and let's find the money within. And so I invite you to put my amendment up and for debate and for a vote to happen around that.
Right, now, I've actually moved the resolution in the first instance. Councillor Kenny? Right, thank you. Right, okay, now we've got a second of there, a second amendment there, or first amendment. Can I have a seconder, please, for Councillor Cams?
I'll second it.
Councillor Dick?
Oh, it's like an auction.
Okay, right. So, Councillor Christine?
Excuse me, Your Worship.
Oh.
Sorry, Chris, I just wanted to, I know you said that there was going to be 3 people speaking.
Yes.
And the third one being a legal counsel.
Oh, Cecilia, yeah, so you're right.
I just wanted to sort of put that on
There she
before
is
the
there.
debate,
Yeah, yeah.
if that's okay, and my
Look,
apologies
very,
for
very
that.
good. Yeah, no, that's
Apologies.
fine. Actually, I apologise. I was so sort of focused on other things. Celia,
No problems.
would you like to contribute anything further from a legal viewpoint in terms of how we might go forward?
Through the Mayor, the Auditor General has explained the implications of not having a long-term plan, which effectively no budget, and the council cannot set rates. So in terms of providing additional information, the only other one that I would draw your attention to is the ability of the minister to intervene. So the minister has powers to require information from the council or intervene by various mechanisms. For example, appointing a Crown Observer, Crown Manager, or appoint a commission. So there are a range of devices available, and it is up to the minister's discretion to exercise any one of them. And there are no automatic steps that need to be taken before one is exercised in favour of another. So it's not my place to speculate which will be undertaken by the minister. Suffice to say that these are the interventions that are available. Some examples of appointment of commissioners, as you may be aware, would be in Kaipara and also at Environment Canterbury. So I don't have anything additional to add that hasn't already been said. The Auditor General has quite clearly spoken in terms of some of the other implications from a legal point of view.
Very good. Thank you, Cecilia.
Can I
Councillor
just ask one question of,
Yeah,
of
absolutely.
a legal counsel?
Yep.
The Auditor General mentioned, while she was here, that the legal risks in regards to not passing the LTP is in breach of the law. So can you just sort of, just one, whether that's in fact true? I have no doubt it is, but I just need another opinion from yourself. And is that under the Local Government Act? I just want to get some around that, please.
So the Local Government Act requires that the council is at all times to have a long-term plan. And the current long-term plan lapses at the end of June. So we do need to adopt another long-term plan by 30 June. So that is a requirement of law.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Right, and I've got councillor Penny W.
Yes, thank you for that advice, and listening very carefully to what the Auditor General and the other advice we've had, there was a comment that if we don't pass this and we are in breach of contact, we could be sued, and my question is, would that apply to all councillors or just those who vote in the negative?
Oh no, just those that win no. I'm sure.
Celia?
Well, I'm just interested because, I mean, we do have
Cecilia?
a duty of care here.
The question of liability will depend a lot on the facts of the situation, and it's probably not appropriate for me to express an opinion at this forum.
Okay.
That's right.
That's all right.
Okay,
got a question.
well, councillor George.
Yeah, just in saying that, or talking about the liability or civil liability on councillors, it's kind of been said that once the plan was signed off on the 5th of May, that was the final decision. Can the legal officer actually tell me whether that was the final decision, or do councillors still have a democratic right to vote for or against the adoption of the plan?
Look, I can answer that.
No,
you-
I asked the,
well, look,
ask the legal officer.
Okay, where you go.
So I would reiterate my comment earlier that in May, the council adopted the budgets, but the question of whether or not the liability falls will be something that I wouldn't be commenting on at this forum.
I'm not
Even
asking,
someone better.
I'm not asking that. I'm asking plainly,
It wasn't adopted.
do councillors have the right at this meeting today, when we are dealing with the adoption of the long-term plan, to vote as they believe it is, as they feel, or as their mind turns
Yes.
to the document?
Absolutely.
So can you just answer that, please?
So the councillors are decision makers, and the answer is yes.
Yep, and,
different to what we were told the other day.
Stephen, is there anything you want to add to that?
I think the key thing here is Mr Chair, is that, and I think the Auditor General made that clear, the decision-making rests with this table. What she and Sue and Cecilia and myself are attempting to do is that you have full knowledge of the ramifications of a decision that you might make collectively and individually as you cast your vote. And clearly today, our standing orders provide for you to vote for the resolutions, against them, or to abstain.
Yep.
Those are, you have three options, and it's very clear.
Can I just ask another question, follow up to that then, Mr Mayor, please? It raises the question, and this Auditor General comes today and talks about her report. If she had come today, and we only saw the report, we got a copy, an advance copy the other day. If she had come here and said, look, I've looked through your report and it doesn't stack up. You've got to, it's not what I believe is a proper document, so do more work. At this late stage, how would we handle that?
Well, look, councillor George, that is a heck of a hypothetical, because we would have had plenty of warnings. So she, and you recall, we had some interesting discussions last year with the Auditor's Office. And so she gave us some reasonably clear directions before signing off the draft. So we would have been in correspondence with her, and she would have been in correspondence with us. And so the issue of something like this, right at the last minute, basically leaving yourself in a situation where you just cannot change, and should not change because of the process we've got in place, just would not arise. So that's a theoretical that I just don't think you can base on any type of fact or practice that I've seen so far.
Well, can I just follow up on that, please, Mr Mayor? You had this letter from the 6 councillors 6 weeks ago, and, well, the date. I'd just like to know what action has been taken, because they raised some concerns, and what action happened? Did they go away after you speaking to you in a happy mood, or what?
Councillor George, you're clearly in a desperate
Clearly
state.
they didn't.
Poor old Councillor George. One, you could talk to your colleagues for a start. And secondly, in terms of the concerns that were expressed and raised primarily as a consequence of the resolution that we passed supporting Councillor Mike's concerns about whether or not we could find more savings in the rail budget, the letter was primarily addressed at that. I met with all of the councillors, and in particular I met subsequent with Councillor Mike when it became clear as to exactly how we would go through the review to see whether or not there are extra savings. Now, Councillor George, I'm sure they all are really appreciative of the fact you want to be the union rep for them, but in the circumstances, everyone has got their own view. What Stephen has said is that we are now in a situation where we've got a very clear choice to make, and all he's doing, and the reason why I set this discussion up this way, was so that everyone was clear as to what the outcome of the decision was that they were wanting to make. So you knew exactly what the ramifications were. And so I don't think that we could set it any more black and white. It's not taken away from you your rights to vote yay or nay. I'd never ever do that, no one could. It's right at the heart of this. You've got the right to actually say no. All I'm saying to you is the consequences of that are clear, and I'm encouraging you, for all of the reasons that we've discussed so far, and we'll discuss for the rest of the day, to ensure that we have a budget, that we have supply. And then we can go forward with supply and continue on the discussions as we always do.